Racing boats, sports boats, are they ugly or are they beautiful? Nautical tips in a nutshell? Let's find out. Of course, I was talking about finishes, and I'm referring to racing sailboats, or in any case, very sporty sailboats. I brought someone along with me. I asked Marco Akler from Neomarine to explain to me where and why they are made this way, and to point out the details of why certain solutions are adopted by the shipyards. Marco, I'm asking you this question because often at boat shows, people rightly come to compare boats. They come to compare them and maybe step inside. On this First 30, for example, we're on board the First 30, so a very sporty boat, and for instance, people point out this unfinished area, as they call it, or other details. Can you explain a bit how racing boats are built?
Well, it is certainly true that almost all high-performance racing boats, for at least about the last 20 years or so, have consistently utilized advanced vacuum infusion technology to ensure their structural integrity and speed. This is the main construction technique used for all composite parts, so fiberglass and carbon fiber. To put it simply, even for those following along, this is how they're made. The standard technique involves impregnating our fiberglass with resin. You roll it with a small roller like the kind you use to paint walls. Anyone who's tried it knows the feeling. Whereas vacuum infusion involves applying all our mold and all the layers of fiberglass dry, one after the other. Then the mold is put under vacuum, and using a careful channel called an infusion network, the resin is injected at a pressure of 1 atmosphere into our laminate. This allows us, first of all, to have less resin in relation to the amount of fiber in the laminate, so a more advantageous ratio and therefore less weight. Moreover, the resin, instead of being pressed in by the operator, is instead injected at a pressure of 1 atmosphere, allowing it to penetrate the fibers. So we ultimately end up with a significantly more rigid final product, though. And this structural combination of stiffness and lightness means that our boat, our entire hull, is exceptionally high performing. This technology, as I mentioned earlier, until a few years ago was only used in the world of racing. I'm talking about sailing boats, but also Formula 1 and other competitions, where fiberglass and carbon fiber come into play. Nowadays, it's also found on production sports boats like this First 30. Let's go back to why it's a bit ugly. Because this technique, which as mentioned, minimizes the amount of resin and so on, leaves an appearance. Let's say it's not entirely finished because the pressure from the vacuum bag creates a series of wrinkles, let's call them that, on the fiberglass compared to what you might get with hand-rolled fiberglass.
And it's not covered up. So why is that?
It's not covered because actually here we do have a covering. This is a patch that's applied. It definitely looks nicer, but it's all extra weight that we end up carrying. So for the boat to be sporty, we need to be as light as possible. All the extra weight we have on board is weight we have to carry, and our power to weight ratio, in this case we're not talking about horsepower but about square meters of sail, has to move us along with a whole bunch of unnecessary items. This boat was designed as a sports boat, so on this type of boat it was preferred to leave this construction detail exposed. Because in fact it does its job, but...
So the lightness of the construction, it makes me wonder, but wouldn't that actually tend to render the vessel more fragile?
No, actually. The overall rigidity of the hull doesn't come from its weight. We tend to think that something heavy is also strong. But actually, this technique also allows us to arrange the fibers to increase the amount of fiberglass in specific areas. So we end up with a structure that is lighter, but contains more fibers inside, making it even stronger.
Right. So basically you only put what's necessary exactly where it's needed, where it's useful to have it.
Exactly. The technique is really about, and especially about, replicating objects as similarly as possible. I always go back to our operator who used to laminate the resin. Today he might be a bit more tired, today he might be a bit more energetic, so he'll put a bit more energy or a bit less into laminating the boat. That means one boat made this week might have a bit more resin, while the one made next week might have a bit less resin, or in any case the resin will accumulate differently. On the other hand, vacuum infusion allows us to have a product that is identical, not 100%, but still with very high repeatability across all the boats. So our customer Luca, who buys a boat today, will have a boat in his hands that's the same as the customer, of course, who buys it in 3 months. And these two boats will be able to compete on equal footing because they will be two objects that are really very similar to each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for the excellent explanation. I hope that this explanation, which was very technical and detailed about racing boats and sports boats, was enjoyable and useful for you, so there's nothing left for me to do. First of all, I want to thank Marco Ackler from Neobarin New Marina and remind you that if you don't want to miss any of our boating content, or it in a Pilole, all you have to do is subscribe right here to this channel. From this beautiful day here on Lake Como, all that's left for me to say is fair winds and always keep an eye on the weather.